Good evening, everyone. Gordon Causey and Candy the Wonder Pop. And my curtain's a little messed up, but big deal. My high tech, high production value YouTube channel. Hello, Candy. And it is pretty much Friday the 13th. I'll get to that in a second. Whatever. Close enough. Sit down. Let me get her treat. Shake paw. Lay down. She gave me a good one tonight. There you go. I see the chat has already started. Daniel is going acronym crazy. I love it. I have my coffee ready. Different night, different mug. I think I'm going to make this a theme. Every night I'm going to try and use a different mug. I could probably go about 2 weeks without having to use the same mug. What are Daniel's acronyms? I like this. Coffee. Christ offers forgiveness for everyone, everywhere. Amen. And I've seen this one before on a t-shirt. Bible, basic instructions before leaving earth. I like that one. And Sharunian's here as well. Need help. The like, dislike, save to playlist accept buttons have disappeared, leaving only the download button available. I don't have a cell phone. I don't have a functioning cell phone. I'm not hooked up. And even my old, I think it was an S3 Samsung that I kept in my pocket as a clock, used as an alarm clock, and I used it to hook up to Wi-Fi whenever I was, Tim Hortons or any place I could snag some free Wi-Fi. Well, it's pretty much given up the ghost. It's like a 15-year-old phone. So I'm completely cut off. So I don't know. Everything appears normal the way it always has been with me, at least on my laptop. And according to Daniel Copeman, coffee is that acronym of Christ offers forgiveness for everyone everywhere is an invention of Pastor Vincent Rhodes, who has a YouTube station here that both Daniel and I watch. I won't say I watch everyone, but I watch a number of them. He's excellent. And it's Coffee with Jesus, I think is the name of his channel. You can correct me if I made a mistake, Daniel. Anyway, we are just about Friday the 13th. Right now, where I am, Eastern Time Zone, Canada, little small town, southeastern Ontario, Northumberland County, about 100 miles, 150 kilometers or so from Toronto. It is 9:33 p.m. on the Thursday, the 12th of September. Across the pond, it's already, if you're in Europe, it's already Friday the 13th. If you're in the Middle East, that contentious region, if you're anywhere in Israel, Iran, Iraq, it's already Friday the 13th there. And I'm just wondering what we should expect today. Friday the 13th is an ominous day. There are the movies. I've never seen a single one of them, but horror movies about Friday the 13th. And I know that when we had this 9th day of the month of Av, what Jews refer to as the Tisha B'Av, Israel was very much on edge, thinking that something was going to happen, because historically that 9th day of the month of Av, which if memory serves on our Gregorian calendar fell on the 12th and 13th of August, just passed, Israel was very much on edge at that day because of the historic events of that day. It's just a bad day to be, historically it has been a bad day to be Jewish on the 9th day of the Jewish month of Av. That's when the temple, both the first temple and the second temple, were destroyed. It's the day in 135 AD when the Roman legions murdered 500,000, killed 500,000 Jews during what's called the Bar Kokhba revolt. It's the day in the 11 or 1200s when Great Britain expelled all the Jews from their country, and then France did the same on the same day in 1492, always on this 9th day of the month of Av. So, and then we had 9/11. Just yesterday, and it was, is something going to happen on, 9/11? Somebody called 911, but nothing happened. Now, just 2 days after 9/11, we have the 13th falling on a Friday. And this has been around in at least Western culture, this idea that the Friday the 13th, is an ominous day full of dark omens. This has been around for 700 years or so. The most compelling evidence, or the most compelling reason for why is Friday the 13th supposed to be bad luck, it centers around the Knights Templar, which was a religious order that did exist. They were founded back in the 1100s after I think it was the First Crusade, when the Christian Crusaders had gained control of the Holy Lands, Jerusalem, Bethlehem, and large numbers of Christians, Europeans, wanted to travel down to the Holy Land. They wanted to make pilgrimages to see, the site of the crucifixion, the site of Jesus's birth, Nazareth, Bethlehem, everything, Stations of the Cross. And so a papal bull, I think is the term, was written, and it created this order of knights called the Knights Templar, or Knights of the Temple Knights, Templar. And their job was to protect the pilgrims on their way to the Holy Lands. And fascinating history. There's a lot of legend, a lot of myth that gets built into it. It is said that in Jerusalem, that they stabled their horses and created living quarters in the ruins of the old temple, hence the Templar Knights. And this is where myth takes over. Some suspect that they gained some secret knowledge digging through the ruins of the old temple. Did they or did they not? Well, we'll never know in all likelihood. But they were an incredibly wealthy order, perhaps the wealthiest order in Catholicism, Roman Catholicism, until that time. And back then, forget Roman Catholicism, they were the church. Rome was the church. Rome was it. There was no Reformation yet. The Reformation wouldn't come until the 1500s. Just going to read up on what's being written. Daniel is saying, does not Friday the 13th have to do with the Knights Templar? Yeah, it does. What happened is they became incredibly wealthy. I'm long-winded. Sorry, Daniel, but they became incredibly wealthy. It's said that they invented banking. Or at least traveler's checks, because obviously traveling at that time, we're talking Middle Ages here, and you're traveling hundreds, thousands of miles, kilometers from Western Europe into the Holy Land. And if you were carrying large sums of silver, gold, precious metals on you, you could get robbed. And so what the Templars did is you could go to an office of the Knights Templar, deposit your money with them. They would give you a promissory note, almost like a traveler's check. And then when you arrived in Jerusalem, they had another branch of an office there, and there you could redeem and get your cash, or your gold, silver, copper, or whatever coinage you had. And incredibly wealthy group. And then in the 1300s, the King of France was broke. he needed money, and I forget what the Pope at that time was Clement, but I'm not sure what the King of France's name was at that time. But at any rate, the King of France was broke, and so he sent secret orders throughout France, throughout the French kingdom, to, I guess, his earls, his dukes, his barons, whatever, and charging the Knights Templar with all manner of crimes, heresy, homosexuality, spitting on the cross, all kinds of horrific claims. And that letter was to be opened on Friday, October 13th in the year 1307. I double checked before I came on live, and so it was a horrible, horrible day to be a Knight Templar. They were all dragged and they were tortured. They were almost pretty much over the ensuing years universally executed. Clement at first was disinclined to bring the weight of the Catholic Church down on them, to bring the church down on them, but eventually he toed the line, and anyone who was a Knight Templar within 2 or 3 years, they were all executed, often burned at the stake, many of them. So, and this is where legend, where history and legend, everything I've just said, aside from the bit about, did they get some secret knowledge out of the ruins of the old temple? Maybe, maybe not, we don't know. But everything I told you up until now is history. And then legend takes over. And it is said that the Knights Templar had a navy, that they were one of the world's largest naval powers, and their navy, they had ships. And I'm trying to remember the La Rochelle region of France is where they had ships. And it is contended by some that what happened was that they took their secret, either wealth or their knowledge or artifacts or whatever it is they had, or all of it, and they put it onto ships, and that they sailed to England and eventually settled in Scotland, and that the history of the Knights Templar ends, and right around the same time the history of Freemasonry begins. And many believe that basically Freemasons became a secret society with Templar roots. But that's the reason why it's widely held, why Friday the 13th is considered an ominous, unlucky day, is because it was certainly ominous and unlucky Friday, October 13th, 1307, for the Knights Templar. Just going to catch up. Danielle Sweeney is here. Saying hi to everyone. Good to have you back, and thank you for subscribing the other day. This is the kind of thing that I do, and everyone helps me out with. You, Sharunian, Daniel. I wish you had a different name, Daniel and Danielle, but it's all good. So what's happening now is the big news coming out that I've been consuming when I have time is that Israel is very much, and I think the term many are using, and it's an appropriate term, if Israel is going to launch a ground invasion into Lebanon, they're softening the ground. They're preparing, they're taking out key Hezbollah and Iranian proxy group defense mechanisms so that they can have an easier entry if they do launch a ground assault. And I think it's a given. I would be very surprised, and I'm giving myself a bit of a long runway and saying, by the end of September. I remember after October 7th, the Israelis were saying they were going to invade Gaza, but it took a week and a half, 2 weeks, maybe even 2 weeks plus, before the IDF actually went in. Before they went in, they softened the ground. They engaged in a number of airstrikes and established something that was easy to establish, air superiority. And I think they're doing the same thing now in Lebanon, trying to shut down Hezbollah's supply routes, any anti-ballistic rocket fire that could be launched at Israeli aircraft. And they're trying to set things up so that they can have an easier, not an easy, but an easier entry into Lebanon, and in an effort to subdue not Hamas, but Hezbollah, the three H's, Hezbollah in Lebanon, Hamas in Gaza, and the Houthis in Yemen. Interesting that they're all three H's, but just gonna Daniel Copeman, don't have to modify your name. I can do the difference between Daniel and Danielle. It's all good. Um, what I mean, if you want to, I'm not going to tell you what to do, but I'm okay with Daniel and Danielle. Yeah. One's masculine, one's feminine. So that's the big news on the international front, to my eyes. Internationally, for a Canadian, although it seems almost national, is the U.S. election, and that's going to be a soap opera from start to finish. And I think I mentioned yesterday, one of the biggest searches going on right now is, do Haitians eat pets? And I trashed the mainstream legacy media is over. No one believes anything they say anymore. I mean, there are still some. And if you want to know if someone still believes the legacy mainstream media, you see them every day. They're that tiny minority of people who are putting on those germ rag petri dish masks, those face diapers. Those are individuals who still believe the nightly news. I'm having more and more conversations with people and doing my best to open eyes. And it strikes me hardly anyone anymore believes the nightly news. And it's a little sad. It's a little depressing. I mentioned the other night that I went and played basketball with my little guy. And what happened was, when I got down there, he had already gone down on his own, and he had met up with a couple of friends, a friend of his from school and that friend's younger brother. And their mother was there supervising. The helicopter was nearby, and super nice lady. But I talked about the fact that I wish that my little guy, that he could ride around on his bike and go out with his friends and without having to have a parent around. And she said, oh, she's just not comfortable doing that, just not comfortable letting her son, 11-ish years of age, go out on his own because the world is just too dangerous and yada, yada, yada. And I'm like, and I get the distinct impression with this lady that she is a news watcher, and it wouldn't surprise me if both of her kids rolled up their sleeves and did as the media instructed them to do. I've got Danielle writing that Haitians do practice voodoo. Don't worry about your spelling. I don't care. I said voodoo, even though you spelled it voodoo. Doesn't matter. All our spelling sucks. It's online. You're on a phone like that, or on a keyboard like that. You're going to make mistakes. There was one other thing. Oh yes, Trudeau. I was just watching Thomas Mulcair, who's the previous leader of the NDP party. He preceded Jagmeet Singh, and he's become something of a political commentator. He writes columns that sometimes get published in the Toronto Sun or National Post or whatever media. He's sometimes interviewed by CTV, CBC, Global. Something about, former leader of a national political party, Thomas Mulcair, although not a very successful politician. Jack Layton had taken the NDP all the way into being the official opposition to Stephen Harper's Conservatives during his majority mandate. So it was the NDP who was the number 2 most seats in Parliament. Right now, they're 4th, but they were at one time the 2nd. And that was under Jack Layton. And then Jack Layton got sick. I think he had cancer and he died. And Thomas Mulcair took over and restored the NDP to its traditional 3rd, 4th place. But anyway, he is saying he's touting the need for the Liberal Party to replace Justin Trudeau with Mark Carney, who is a former head of the Bank of Canada Then he became the head of the Bank of England. And then he went to work in advisory roles with the UN and organizations like the International Monetary Fund. And now he's back. He's not a sitting member of parliament yet, but he's basically kind of an advisor to the Liberals, and many see him as the heir apparent, that he would be the one that they would replace Trudeau with. And this should give pause, because I think that there are a lot of people who are, the latest polling has the Liberals at 23% and the Conservatives at 43%. But I think a lot of the support that the Conservatives are getting are from people who are like, well, then the next, I can't vote Liberal anymore. They've, pardon the expression, I'm going to swear, but they've shit the bed. And so the next best choice is Pierre Poilievre and the Conservatives. However, if the Liberals were to jettison Trudeau, or if Trudeau was to resign and be replaced by Mark Carney, I definitely would see things tightening up significantly. And now we've got a horse race. And I think, former governor of the Bank of Canada, former governor of the Bank of England, you want to see the World Economic Forum's agenda being pushed. You want to see a globalist puppet. Trudeau definitely is a globalist puppet. Well, so is Mark Carney. Unfortunately, the number of people who are all in on, recognizing that there is a globalist cabal that is trying to basically reorganize the entire world. Great Reset, Agenda 2030, Agenda 2035, Fourth Industrial Revolution. Not everyone has gone down these rabbit holes significantly, and many would. There's a, better the devil you know than the devil you don't know. And so that to me is at least a little bit worrisome. Anyway, Danny Copeman. Okay. It's the same name. All right. He changed his name. Danny thinks that Mauclair was a good guy. And he also says, rest in peace, Jack. And Danielle is writing that Rebel News was there today interviewing locals. Is this in Montreal for the by-election? Danny is writing that I got alternative media footage of folks in these towns on record saying that pets are disappearing. You know what? The legacy media lies. We all know it. That's why everyone is fact-checking things. We all know the legacy media lies. So, I mean, I've said here many times about the only thing I trust them on is the sports scores. And that's it, pretty much. Maybe a traffic report. But anything of significance, anything that impacts our day-to-day lives, I think they're lying constantly. If you can share this footage of alternative media saying that pets are disappearing, and it appears it's Rebel News and Ezra Levant, who is their main guy, who, for what it's worth, in my opinion, Ezra Levant and Rebel News are part of the machine. Controlled opposition, put whatever label you want on it. When I was at a protest, December of 2021, there was an event in Whitby, Ontario, organized by the Democracy Fund. And there was a Dr. Julia Panesi speaking there. She was an ethics professor at the University of Western, lost her job because she had refused to get the jab. She was there. Doug Ford's daughter was there. Doug Ford's daughter's husband was there, former Staff Sergeant, Metro Toronto Police. And Henry Hildebrandt was speaking, so was by video link Phil Hutchison and I think Art Pulowski. It was at Canada Christian College. I got to meet Charles McVitie, who's a former close friend of former Prime Minister Stephen Harper. And I also met David Menzies, a guy who always wears that large fedora type hat during his on-camera time with Rebel News. And David Menzies did not impress me. I think that Ezra Levant is part of the machine. They were covering the boxing match that Justin Trudeau had with Patrick Brazeau, a charity event that really helped build Justin Trudeau's profile and really helped solidify him as the front runner for the Liberal leadership. And I think that entire thing was staged. I think Patrick Brazeau was bought and paid for, and that he took a dive, and Rebel News was there to film it and give it video coverage and put it up on YouTube. I thought that was a crock. Anyway, and Danny, now formerly Daniel, now Danny Copeman, his dad always called him Danny, so it's not new to him. Good. And it's Springfield, Ohio, is it not? There are so many Springfields. There's Springfield, Massachusetts, Springfield, Ohio. Springfield is, Springfield, a field of spring. They're everywhere. Danny is saying that he'll send it to me, email address needed. My email address is in the description to my channel, and it is Canadian Soapbox, all one word, Canadian Soapbox @gmail.com. And I would love to see that video because I would love to be able to share it out on my social media feeds. More proof that the legacy media is nothing but a lying sacks of what. Those who wear shoes in their home are strange. Okay. Danielle watched it today, this video, and Danny gets footage from non-media sources. Nothing wrong with that. Danny's giving me his sobriquet, David the Menzoid Menzies. Danielle has to run. Company, enjoy your time. We'll catch up with you on the next one or later. And I'll end it off now because in the title to this, I said it's Friday the 13th, which will be in a couple hours where I am, and we'll see what happens. But we've spoken many times the passage from Matthew chapter 24, starting in verse 37, where Jesus is saying, as were the days of Noah, so will be the coming of the Son of Man. For as in those days before the flood, they were eating and drinking, marrying and giving in marriage until the day when Noah entered the ark. And they did not know until the flood came and swept them all away. So will be the coming of the Son of Man. Thus ends the reading of the word. Thanks be to God. I kind of, and I hope no one takes offense to it, but I said, as it was in the days of Xbox and Tinder. I forget exactly how I titled it, but looking at this, and it says they were eating and drinking, marrying and giving in marriage. They were doing their day-to-day normal activities, and like a thief in the night. That's the coming of the Son of Man, and and for us that will mean the second coming. But marriage and giving away in marriage, no one gives anyone away in marriage anymore. Certainly not in Western culture. In some cultures it still happens, but now everyone dates and shacks up beforehand, and everyone's hooking up, I think is the expression, and so how do we put this into modern language? Well, everyone was playing their Xboxes, they were playing their video games, they were on Tinder, swipe or whatever it's called, swiping and trying to find their next sexual hookup, and just ordering off of Amazon. I could have put that down. These are the things that everyone's engaged in now, and they don't have their eyes on the prize. They don't know what's coming, and we're nearing an inflection point. If Israel invades Lebanon, and I fully expect that they are going to, they're indicating that they are going to put boots on the ground, go into Lebanon, confront Hezbollah directly, try and deal with Hezbollah in the same manner that they dealt with Hamas, and totally eliminate them as a threat to Israel. And now what that does is it just starts the dominoes start falling. And we know that Iran is the sponsor of all these groups surrounding Israel, Hezbollah, Hamas, and the Houthis, Islamic Jihad, and others. So we know that they're the puppet master behind the screen. Meanwhile, Iran is allied with Russia. Russia's allied with China. Russia has ties with North Korea as well, Kim Jong, whatever his name is. And then we've got Turkey, Erdogan, or however you say his name, the president of Turkey, is trying to galvanize support in Islamic communities, all in support of going at Israel. They want to go at Israel. That is Islamic ground. That is once Islamic, always Islamic. They want Israel wiped off the map. And this battle is coming. And barring something unforeseen, there's talk. I'm seeing talk that the Israelis are offering to allow Hamas's leader, who is still in Gaza, his name is Sinwar, offering to let him get out of Dodge, and his entourage, let his advisors, let his team, you can leave, you can go and seek asylum in Iran or wherever you want, in exchange for the release of the remaining 100 or so hostages. Is that a genuine offer? Is it an offer being made that they know will be refused? Diplomacy is such a funny thing. There are so many things that go on. So, but in the days ahead, and I'll give it till the end of September, Israel is going to go into Lebanon. That's my prediction. And then you think the propaganda has been anything until now, just wait, it's going to blow up even bigger. And I think the voices denouncing Israel are going to get louder and louder and louder. And a lot of those voices that are denouncing Israel, they side with the Islamic voices saying that the creation of the nation state of Israel in 1948, that this is an error of history that never should have happened. They buy into this fabricated history about Israel stealing the land and the Great Britain and the United Nations just handing Israel to the Jewish Palestinians on a silver platter. And they ignore the fact that there was this nearly year-long war that took place to establish Israel as a nation state. People pretend that didn't happen. That, it's an alternative. Some people live in an alternative universe. So, as I say, always on this channel, get into this book. Get into relationship as it was in the days of Noah, as it was, in these days with people just playing their video games and hooking up on Tinder and ordering garbage off of Amazon and fooling around on their cell phones. The king is coming back, and when he comes back, you are going to want to be in relationship with him. Have your lamp, have lots of oil, and be ready and be waiting and be alert, because it's one thing that had occurred to me, is that the whole idea of replacement theology, and those who say that the Israel of today has no connection to the Israel spoken of by prophets like Daniel, Ezekiel, Jeremiah, Zechariah, Amos, etc., that Israel has been dealt with, that Israel doesn't matter. Here you have the greatest opportunity. Israel should not exist today. Where are the Amalekites? Where are the Midianites? Where are the Hittites? Where are these ancient kingdoms today? They're all gone. Israel, name another kingdom, name another people who after 2,000 years reestablish themselves in their ancestral homeland. That is miraculous. However it happened, it is miraculous. And people want to pretend it doesn't matter. You talk about the greatest opportunity to testify and witness as to the veracity of this book. Israel's existence today is a miracle. I will gather back my people a second time from the four corners of the earth. That only ever happened and came to a culmination after that 1948-49 war. And they've survived attacks in 1967 and in 1973 and countless uprisings since. We're surrounded in a hostile region, and yet they persevere. If that isn't, if there isn't a hand protecting them, if they haven't got a hedge of protection around them, they do. They do. And they're not perfect. They're not perfect. Iran isn't perfect. Israel isn't perfect. Iran and Turkey isn't perfect. No one's perfect. But I would not, Israel has described in prophecy as an unfaithful wife who was, but that brought back. Are you going to badmouth the wife of the Lord Most High? Are you going to badmouth her? Even though he's put her away for a time. That'll be my homework for tonight and tomorrow, is that passage. And I'm trying to remember the prophet who exemplified it. Might have been Amos, I forget. That's my homework for tonight, is to find out which prophet that was. That story about likening Israel, the nation state, the people of the land and the people, Israel, as being like an unfaithful wife married to God. It's the same type of language we get in, with the bride and the bridegroom. Jesus is the bridegroom. We, the church, are the bride. So I'm going to leave it there. Anyway, I'm going to read what's being written. Jesus is King. Get to know him. He'll be your best friend without judgment. Amen. Danny writes, my trick is to talk to Jesus as if he were two friends having a couple of sodas, good and bad. Sharunya writes, Quentin has some background in IT. Please help me resolve this issue. I don't have much of a background in IT. I'm bare bones basic. Anyway, John 5 is writing, I wonder what happened to CN and PKC. They were forced to work, no deals. I've got to check up on that, because what has happened is that the unions, the Teamsters Union, one represents workers for both railways. They have launched, or at least they said they were going to launch, a legal challenge to the order to go back to work. And, because so many other things happening, squirrel, it's so hard to keep track of everything that's going on. Legal proceedings can take a long time to wind their way through our judicial system. So I'm going to check up on that and see. I've got a couple things of homework to do now. What happened with their legal challenge to the constitutionality of that order that they requiring them to go back to work. They were challenging it, but in the interim, they were going to abide by it. So I'll check into that. Cryptomeria, it has been very quiet. And John is saying that most of the news on it is behind a paywall. That is so annoying. And Danny is giving me the name of the prophet. It's Hosea. What happened was Hosea had an unfaithful wife who prostituted herself, much the same way that Israel has prostituted itself throughout its history. And Hosea was instructed by God to buy her back after she prostituted herself. And this is as an example of how how God, how Yahweh, how Jehovah, how the God Most High, how he is going to repurchase his bride, Israel. That's the way it's laid out in Hosea, but I have to read it again. I've read the entire Bible, but it's not a small book. It's 66 books. So thank you for that, Danny. I'm going to reread it just in case. He's thinking it might be the second chapter. I'll read the whole thing because I know it's not a particularly big book. It's not Habakkuk, it's not Jonah, but it's not that bad. But anyway, Tina Starry showed up. Just wanted to say hi. Awesome. Thank you for dropping in. And I'll wrap it up by saying, if you're not subscribed yet and you want to join in, please do. Hit the subscribe button. Then if you hit the bell as well, then you get notified when the stream is going live, so you can join in with us. And likes, and if you want to share, and as I suggested yesterday, if you do share this out, you might want to pick a video you liked that you were really engaged with, and then if you do share it out, maybe write a little description as to why you liked it. Might encourage more people to watch. My last video got watched 140, 50 times, which is higher than normal. And Jesus was, is, and will always be King. So may the Lord bless and keep you. May the Lord make his face to shine upon you. And no matter what happens in this world, invite him into your heart. Ask for the guidance of the Holy Spirit, and the Lord can and will grant you peace. So we'll talk to you in another night. Good night.